Good morning, everyone. Is this working well? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here in Bulgaria. I have to tell you that my wife is Japanese, and when I said I was invited to Bulgaria, she had only one word for me: yogurt. And I think there's a lot more than that, but I have to tell you, I have had a lot of yogurt since I've been here, and it's very, very, very good. So thank you. That was a very interesting presentation from Andreas Schleicher. I will tell you, I agree with about half of what he said. But some of those things are very important. What's interesting is that a lot of people can point out the problems and kind of say where we need to go. I'd like to sort of help you think about an answer and a future and something that you might consider. And I'm doing an experiment today because I want you to be able to understand the message completely. I had all my slides translated into Bulgarian. And I thought that was going to be great until I looked at them and I said, I don't know what's on my slides. So I have Bulgarian for you, I have English for me, and I'm going to be John Wayne with two guns and try to do both of them at once so we stay together in sync. So hopefully that will work out well, and thank you for your in the material that I present. It will be available, and I will be happy to send you the slides either in Bulgarian or in English, and that will be my pleasure. All you have to do is send me an email. So what it really comes down to, with all the charts and all the things that we say and all the thinking about the future, it's really about the kids. It's really about those young people in the world that we need to help become adults. And one thing about those kids is that the ones who are already in school are pretty much going to continue with what they have today, with what we have today for those kids. There will be improvements on the margins. We'll improve the teaching a little bit. We'll add some more technology. But they're not going to see the real fruits of the changes that we need. So what I want to focus on are the kids of the future. The kids who are not yet in school. The kids who are not yet born. So we can give them the kind of education that I think they will need in order to succeed and thrive. Because the real question when we look at a kid like this, whether they have the technology today or they don't have that technology today, is what will their world look like when they get out and become adults? What will the world look like in 20 years? And I don't think we're paying enough attention to that. You hear a lot about it. You heard a lot about it from Andreas, but not exactly what to do about it. Our kids need to get to the future, not equipped for the world of yesterday, where everybody here grew up, but equipped for the skills and experiences of tomorrow that are going to empower them to function and to thrive in a very, very different context that they're going to be in. And that's the context of not just the 21st century, but the third millennium. My son, who is now 12, may live way past the 21st century, I hope. And these kids need our help to become the people that they want to be and that they need to be, and not just the people that we want them to be. Because there's a lot of this going around. We need science, we need math, we did this. I lived that the first time when our friends, the Russians, launched Sputnik. Right? I was there. Everybody said, oh my God, math, science, math, science, math, science. And it took me years and years and years to realize that I love science and I like math, but that wasn't what I wanted to do for a living. So we don't want to push people hard. What we want to do is help them go where they want and need to go. And how do we best do that? How do we best prepare our kids for the future? How do we prepare them to thrive in a world which, as Andre has described, is going to be extremely different? How do we unleash their power? Because I believe more than anything else that kids are powerful, much more powerful than in the past, and that we have done the most terrible job of unleashing that power. And that is the huge opportunity before us. And in order to do that, we're going to have to reimagine what education means, all the way from the very first days before kindergarten, all the way through the end of what we call graduate school today. We need to rethink that whole system with a vision of a new and better education. What would we do if we didn't have all the education from the past? What would we do to educate kids for the future in a way that better fits them and fits the environment of tomorrow, and that unleashes all this new power, which is a city? The beginning. We need to take so much better advantage of this, of these capabilities that our kids have. If you talk to kids around the world, which I do, I go wherever I go. When I come to this, I try to have a student panel. We don't have one today, but I love when we do. They will tell us that they feel disrespected, underappreciated, and underestimated by their teachers, by their parents, by all adults. That's what's going on these days. They can do so much more than we give them credit for. And so when you look out at a class, whatever the classroom looks like, if you're a teacher, how many of you are teachers? There are some teachers in this room, I think. Okay. I see at least one there. When you look out at a class, whatever it looks like, it could be older than this, newer than this, we obviously need to see people that we care about as individuals. But we also, at the same time, need to see extended brains all networked together. And that is often the part that we are missing. So how do we prepare these newly empowered kids to thrive with their new capabilities in the world, capabilities that we didn't have? How do we unleash their power? That's the question. And to do that, we need to think about education in a very different way. Not just what can we add on incrementally to what we already do today, because we're already full. We don't have a lot of room to add on incrementally to what we do. We need a new vision, a different, better kind of education that better fits those kids of tomorrow. And as I said, that vision is already emerging in pockets all around the world. I am very sure that there's some of it here in Bulgaria. But what we see is this huge wall between the current education that we have, the one that PISA measures, and my big beef with Schleicher is that I don't think PISA measures any of the right things, so it's not really a good way to compare anything. The wall is between our current education and a new better education. And what's happening is that we're throwing all these darts, whether they're skills or social emotional or standards or school choice or smaller classes or technology, at this wall, and we're not getting through to the other side. We don't wind up with a better education. You saw the chart. If there's any incremental change, it's not very much. The only thing that's going to get us through that wall are new perspectives, seeing education differently, seeing what it's about in a new way. So that's what I'm going to spend the rest of this time telling you about. 5 new perspectives on education, on the ends or goals of education, on the means, on the curriculum, on the teaching, and on the technology. And I hope that you will think about this and think about how you can leapfrog, not just incrementally get better, but leapfrog over what we do today, over lots of other nations, including my own, and get to something that is much better. So let's start with the ends of education, because that's the most important of all. The ends, the reason we do education, I think, are changing. I think it's going from earning grades in subjects to going to school, getting the best grades, improving yourself intellectually, essentially, to improving your world, making the world that you live in a better place. Today, we still ask our kids for academic achievement and success in the current system and knowledge of subjects and college readiness. But we will be asking in the future the kids to make their world a better place. And we'll be able to measure that, and we'll be able to figure out, is the world getting better because these kids are in school? They can already, in many ways, help their communities, help the less fortunate, help infrastructure, help their peers, help history, help legacy, help with government, public service, and add to the world's databases. So that's already what's here. They are already doing this. And they want to do more. And we have lots of kids now, you probably heard this, who say, I want to change the world. And here I think there's a mistake in the slide because there was in my English slide. When I hear people say, we want to change the world, I say, be very careful, because as Andreas pointed out, you can change it positively or negatively. You'd better say, we want to improve the world. That's what we want our kids to say. We want to improve the world. And all these groups, now we're starting to see not just the individuals, but some big groups getting on board. The International Baccalaureate. Any of you involved with the International Baccalaureate schools? They're talking about their mission is to create a better world through education. Ashoka, another great organization, is trying to know that every young person can change the world for the better. Michael Fullan, who's a Canadian, a wonderful thinker on education. He's seeing that people are thinking more and more that education's role is to develop humanity. So it's not just me, it's not just one or two people. The world is thinking about this. The future of education, the goal, the future ends of education are to better their world. Not the world according to Mao or anybody else, their world as they see it. And to become, in that process, good, effective, world-improving people. So that's the perspective on the ends of education. Not just better students, but a better world. Not just getting good grades, but becoming good, effective, world-improving people. Now, how do we do that? That means we have to rethink our meaning. Because we hear lots of things about learning. Everything's about learning. School's about learning. And at one point I got tired of hearing about learning. Because learning is not a goal. Learning is an end, a means. Learning is a means to get to a goal. The goal is to get things done. Even Andreas said that. Not what you know, but what you can do with what you know. The goal is accomplishment. The goal is accomplishment. Learning is not the goal. There's a better means. Learning is a means, but there's a better means, which is real-world accomplishment, which means we have to do things, projects you can call them, in the real world to make the real world a better place. They have to lead to real-world results. We have to have measurable, positive change in the world as a result of what our kids do. And the reason for that, this was known hundreds of years ago. Thomas Carlyle from Scotland said, nothing builds self-esteem and self-confidence like accomplishment. And it turns out that if you want to understand who's going to accomplish in the future, the best predictor of future accomplishment
accomplishment. Once you learn to do it, you do more and more and more and get better and better and better at doing it. And that's not what education has been about in the past. Now, it's not that nobody ever wanted to make the world better. We all thought that education would somehow make the world better. That's why we all say it's so important. But we did it very indirectly. We put kids together with content, starting in the early age. That's what we do. We give kids content. We have books full of it, train our teachers. That is supposed to lead to learning, which hopefully it does. Makes them better people, especially intellectually. That leads to, in many ways, improved people. Okay, our kids are intellectually better, they know more. But then we place a very, very big bet. Huge bet. We don't know at all whether that bet is going to come true. And that bet is that these people will someday go out and make the world a better place and improve the world. And the truth is, we all know some do and some don't. So that's not the best way. Today, there's a better way. What we can do is we start out putting kids together with real-world problems. And the kids come up with those problems. The kids come up with those solutions to those problems. And they come up with solutions often that we didn't think of. And that leads us to an improved world now. And that's great. But the kicker is, the more important part is, that it leads us to empowered, world-improving people forever, for the rest of their lives. And that is the thing that we are really looking to have. So the change is from personal achievement of individuals and grades and personal success to real-world accomplishment that's done in teams, where we do world-improving projects and get real-world results. It's not just learning in advance, just in case. It's real-world accomplishment. We don't need the same kinds of courses and discussions and certain tests that we've had up to now. It's not problems that are made up, where we think we're getting a problem and we think it might relate to the world. It's real projects that solve real problems. There's a flood, there's a this, there's a that, there's something that we want to fix in the world. We make ourselves fix it as our education, so that our kids become what my good friend Zowild calls solutionaries. They're people who grow up being able to find solutions to whatever problems show up in their life, in their work, in their families, no matter what it is. And this works far better for the kids, but it also works better for their employers. Because if you look at what companies, forward-thinking companies like Google are looking for, they want people who can get things done. That's the number one thing they say on their website. They don't want degrees, they don't want any of the things, they want people who can get things done. So here's some more examples of kids getting things done. A 6-year-old in Canada heard that they were having bad water. In Canada they have good water, in Africa they didn't have good water. He said, well, what do they need to do? They need to dig wells. So he started a project. They've got people, volunteers in Africa, to dig wells. They've done thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of wells at this point. It's called Ryan's Wells. 6-year-olds. 9-year-olds. They discovered that their municipality, their city, wanted to make a water park. Well, that's very nice, but who should design it? And the kids said, we should design it because we're going to use the water park. So they went and created their own designs. They went to the city council. They lobbied the city council. They discovered that the city council liked their proposals. And when the award was finally awarded to the architects, the city council told the architects, use the student designs. So the students got the park created the way they wanted. In one school, they had to do an environmental report. This is something that's required by the government. And they usually would hire a consultant to do this, pay them usually a lot of money. One year, the school said, we'll just hire our 6th graders. They can do as good a report. So instead of doing what kids usually do in school, which is write a little paper on the environment, these kids did the actual government report. And it was accepted by the government. This is what our kids can do these days. An 11-year-old is one of the world's top cryptographers. Young people are powerful. A young 16-year-old goes into a restaurant, and you may have this in Bulgaria, in a lot of countries in the world now. You go to a restaurant, you have a little kid with you, they give you crayons so that the kid can be kept busy. Well, this happened, and the kid said, the 16-year-old said to the waiter, what do you do with the crayons when you're finished? And they said, we throw them away. And he said, wow, that's a real waste. So he started collecting the crayons. He got volunteers, he put bins in the different restaurants. They brought the crayons back, they sterilized the crayons, and they shipped out crayons to kids in the world in places where they don't have crayons. This is a 16-year-old, huge not-for-profit. In a town where the whole history of the town was about wooden boats, wooden ships. It was a town on the seaside in the northwest of the U.S. All that knowledge was disappearing until a new superintendent said, let's make the schools all about restoring the wooden ships and getting in touch with what our community's history is. So now they have the students restoring. Now think of this could obviously be extended to any historical artifacts that exist that we don't have the opportunity to restore or the money to restore. Kids can do this. Kids can build supercomputers. If you've got a school and there are a lot of old laptops and desktops around, the instructions for making them into a supercomputer, wiring them together, are already on the internet. Your kids can do that. Then you can ask the interesting questions. Okay, now we have a supercomputer. What can we do with it? What questions can it help? What problems can it help us solve in the world? And this is one of my favorites. In the city of San Diego in the U.S., they had a problem with water, and they had to test the water carefully after every time it rained, because the different parts of the different kinds of water that they had got affected differently. So the state of California bought very expensive equipment. It hired a lot of professionals to test the water. It started publishing the results. That was very helpful, but they ran out of money. So they fired all the people, or laid off all the people that were doing the testing. And then some high school students heard about this, and they said, wait, we can do that. We can learn to use this equipment. So they did. They learned to use the equipment, they started measuring the water, and they started putting out the same results that were coming out before. Only one problem. The state of California said, wait, you guys are not professional. We didn't hire you. We can't accept those results as official. So what did the kids do? They're kids. They just published them on the internet. Of course. Same results, same things. Same people who need them get the same results. So all of these projects are coming, and I'm in the process of working with groups all over the world to collect as many of these projects as we can. Ones that were done, ones that could be done, ones that companies or NGOs or governments want to do, that can be done by kids of school age, and have that available to anybody who's searching and says, okay, good, I have some kids here who really like environment, or really like sports, or really like whatever it is, and I'm looking for some projects that could help. We need a database of this, and we're going to have one, I hope, by the end of the year. Okay, now let's look at curriculum. We heard some words about curriculum. And we need, we're all, I think, more and more people are realizing we have to go beyond the subjects. Our friends in Finland have just done a project where they're merging some of the subjects in some of the places. Math, language, science, social studies, that's very old. That was an old way to organize what we needed to have kids get better. But what we really need is lifelong skills. And we heard about these skills, and we hear about something, and people have their different lists of the 3 C's or the coming or the 21st century skills. But it turns out there are lots and lots of them that kids need. And I group them into 4 areas. I think our kids need to be good at effective thinking, effective action, effective relationships, and effective accomplishment. Now what's happened is that almost all of us come from one tradition of education. We come from academia. I would bet that most of you in this room have had some version of that clothes on at some point in your life. But that's only one tradition of education. The academic tradition, the thinking tradition, is what has gone into our schools. But the other tradition, the older tradition of education, the tradition that's been with us since the very beginning, is the accomplishment tradition of education. It's the action and relationships and accomplishment. It's father to son. It's master to apprentice. And that tradition has gone into our workplaces. So we have this curious situation of the thinking part supposedly only in our schools and only the thinking part, and then all the accomplishment part, when you get to work, you have to start all over again with your education. Because thinking, even the most critical thinking and problem solving, rarely leads to success unless it's combined with effective action and effective relationships and effective accomplishments. And we better be teaching those things to our kids from the very beginning. So it's time to put those 2 traditions, and they're both equally good, but we need to put them together into a curriculum of far more generalized skills. It's not the knowledge kids need. They can get the knowledge, they can get it on the job, that's where we get most of our knowledge. It's the skills. And again, as Andrea said, our skill set that we teach is incredibly narrow. It's reading, it's some mathematical thinking, it's some understanding of written communications, it's writing, it's some research, it may be a couple of other things. But the skills that kids need is huge. We don't teach those things today. It's this kind of a list. It's a list that's this long. And because you can't read that from there, I don't think, unless you're very special, I'm going to go through these one at a time, very quickly, subliminally, for all of you to see. And what I want you